welcome everyone to the February 20th, 2024 council meeting. Prior to the open session, council met for a closed meeting. Was moved by Councilor McCann, seconded by Councilor Borneman. Pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 is amended. Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound moved to a special meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, applicants to the facade improvement program committee. C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition for municipal or local board purposes. Future disposition of town-owned property transaction for West Parry Sound Recreation Culture Center project. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, and instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Proposed amendment to the West Parry Sound Recreation Culture Center Board Agreement, property transaction for the West Parry Sound Recreation Culture Center project. And that meeting was carried or held and carried. This meeting is live streamed and recorded and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound website at www.parrysound.ca. And I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robbins-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the Métis waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. Is there any additions or prioritization of Council Board?
Yes, could we move forward to item 10.1, please? If we keep Mr. Beaumont here to the end, then maybe we'll be well past his bedtime.
All right. Any other additions or prioritization? No. Okay, mover and seconder for the agenda. Councilor McCann, Councilor Ashford. Council agenda for February 20th, 2024 be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, mover and seconder for the minutes, please. Councilor Keith, Councilor Borneman, that the minutes from the regular council meeting held February 6th, 2024, and special capital budget council meeting held February 13th, 2024, be approved and circulated. Is there any discussion or comments on any of those meetings? No? All in favor then? And that's carried. Fair enough. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a few minutes to hold a public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to a proposed zoning amendment application under section 34 of the planning. You have a mover and seconder, please. Councilor Ashford and Councilor Keith. That we now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. All in favor? That's carried. Ms. Johnson, could you explain how the public was notified of zoning amendment application that 2401 for G. Bernardi and Sons Limited?
Yes, your worship, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters and posted on the property. Notice is therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rand, can you explain the purpose of the proposed consent application?
Thank you, Worship. I would note that it is a zoning amendment application, or I think I put a typo on the script there. Apologies. So the subject lands, the land subject to the zoning amendment application are located at 85 River Street. And the zoning amendment application proposes to rezone subject lands from the existing zone of residential second density to restricted industrial, subject to special revision 26-139, in order to permit the following uses on the subject lands: mini warehousing, public storage, parking area, professional office, recreational vehicle sales and service, outside storage of finished products, material, or boats, and transportation depot. Staff would note that any development on the subject lands would be subject to site plan control. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In accordance with the Planning Act, council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the council and corporation of the town of Parry in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submission to the council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal will dismiss the appeal. So at this time, you've got consent in here again, it's the zoning, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed application for zoning? So if you do, then you come forward, give your name and your address, and you have some time to say
This is in favor.
in favor. Yes.
So can I be heard, your worship? It's John Jackson electronically.
All right, John, electronic John, how's that? And are you tied to that whirly bird above you there that you're
Well,
spinning?
I'm in a tropical location, so it's actually keeping me fairly cool.
All right, go for it.
All right, thank you, your worship. Good evening, council members. I'm actually assisting the owners with this rezoning at the rear of River Street lands adjacent to the CPR rail lines, in accordance, as Mr. Rand has indicated, with the policies that are contained in the town's official plan. These were policies that were adopted a number of years ago to allow the extension of commercial uses similar to the storage uses that extend beyond the G. Bernetti and Sons Boat Works. There's actually quite a history to these lands where many years ago the current applicants were interested in a small parcel off the railway, but the railway declared these old railway yards surplus as a whole. So they were actually somewhat forced to acquire this large parcel of land. And fast forward to today, and we have a proposal that continues to extend the commercial uses with some conditions to be considered when and how these proposals may come forward. Initially, we were going to actually have the proposed implementing zoning bylaw take place as part of the town's implementing updates. But those updates kind of got abandoned, and I suspect there was a new round of updates coming once the planning instruments are reviewed. As I understand, they are being reviewed. But the owners and all of us are aging, so they thought they'd get on with this implementing zoning bylaw as a site-specific application. So we aren't relying on the update. We're just simply going ahead and proposing that these lands be rezoned in accordance with the policies. They'll be zoned with an H to ensure that whatever uses that may occur are going to be compatible with the adjoining residential lands, whatever those might be in terms of screening, acoustical barriers, fencing, that sort of thing. So there's no specific proposal at this time, but we're putting the lands in a development ready state, but the protections are going to be incorporated. So I thank you so much for this consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed zoning?
Do I go forward or just?
Yeah, no, there's a chair and a microphone there. Name and address for your record, just purple button in front. There you go.
The only thing I would add to what John has already suggested is that the property already being considered is already residential. And the problem that we have there is that it is so close to the railway, so it doesn't make reasonable development, although I do think that we probably could squeeze residential in there. But the idea is that the self-storage business has minimal use in comparison to, say, residential, and so it then offers a buffer between the railway property and the abutting residences. So that's a conversation that John and Dave and Paul and I have had, and I would just throw that out for your consideration as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the zoning change? Seeing none, okay. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed application for zoning? So if so, you come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and state your concerns.
Okay, my name is Ursula Stilson. I live on 63 River Street, and I would like to state my reservations about changing the zoning. When Brunati and Sons developed that area, they elevated the surface so that it is a meter above my property. They took away all the green space, which helped to absorb water runoff from the Louisa Street Hill. They took down a willow tree that was partly on my property, my neighbours and theirs, which also absorbed an awful lot of the water. They also eliminated a creek that would go down into the catchment basin, excuse me. They did put in some drainage pipes. They had to relay them because it wasn't as effective as they had hoped. So right now, what we deal with is all this water that comes from Louisa Street goes through the aggregate subsoil, whatever it is that's on that surface, and then comes into our gardens. So there is a few of us, few of the neighbours, who all have a marshy area, more so than we ever had before because of the change of elevation of said property. If that property then becomes zoned into, excuse me, a industrial zoning, restricted industrial subject to special provision, you've outlined some of the potential permitted uses: mini warehousing, public storage, professional office, transportation depot. These all strike me as being permanent buildings. And the term transportation depot particularly scares me because that could be anything from a small garage to a whole service centre. What is this transportation depot? If said buildings are going to be erected, that would mean that the infrastructure then has to be changed yet again in the area directly behind my property and various of my neighbours, which means that has the potential to further exacerbate the current drainage issues. So I'm a little bit hesitant to just say, oh yeah, no problem. I think there has to be some explanation as to what the future planning is, and I believe John said there has been no set plans yet, which means that leaves the door even more open to whatever could happen further down the road. And it also means that my particular enjoyment of my property may be diminished even further, because currently I look out onto a variety of boats, trailers, trucks, whatever happens to be parked there. I've learned to live with it. But if I now have to look out onto more public storage or mini warehousing, or God forbid, some sort of transportation depot, I don't know how that is going to affect my enjoyment. And I feel that as a taxpayer in this town, I'm also entitled to enjoy my property to the max. So I just want to publicly state my reservations about changing this as it is currently written, because it is very grey to me, very, very open to interpretation. So that's my 10 cents worth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So just so you understand how this process works, your concerns or questions, comments, that sort of thing are all being recorded.
Yes.
And then that will get brought back later for council during their deliberations.
Understood.
Okay? Yes, hello.
Hello, everybody. I am Lena Spears from 57 River Street. Share all the same reservations as my neighbor there, as well as to add a little bit. When we moved into the area, I knew about the storage behind our property. I had no problem with that. However, I did notice the elevation. With the extension of that elevation and the water coming in, it's not just a marshy area that is occurring, it floods to the point my foundation is now at risk. I now have structural integrity issues to my home because of the water that's collecting and not being properly streamlined because of the elevation that was created. For that to proceed all the way down our street, I can only imagine the flooding that we're going to see in years to come and how that's going to affect current homeowners, future home buyers, and the value of our properties going forward. I know housing is a big concern for many people these days, and I worry that we don't not only lose valuation on our homes, but our homes altogether if it were to extend that far. As well as to the vagueness of the terms laid out. I understand, as was previously stated, they don't have specific expectations. But that gray area in terms of legalness, I work with the federal government each and every day. When you leave gray areas, people take advantage. And whether that's current owners or future owners or people coming in, it's not something that I feel comfortable with as a taxpayer in this town. And as a young mom in the town as well. I have my home, I'm hoping to continue to raise my family and have future children. And currently my 2-year-old can't go into her backyard unsupervised for risk of drowning. That's how much water accumulated last year. I'm not overextending that statement. It was past my knees. We had considerable issues. And that's not something I should have to worry about in my own home on the property. Yes, if I was on the other side of the river, drowning concerns all the way. But where I am and where I am in my yard, it should be safe, lush grass for her to play in, and it's currently not. So I would put my name down as no going forward with the current proposal. Bring forward plans for water drainage, how they're going to, I understand they do have to elevate in terms to have the foundation they need to have the storage they do, but proper drainage, insurance is that if it's not done correctly, it will be fixed. Having something in place that's going to ensure that if we, the homeowners, are affected negatively by the water and drainage, that something will be heard and done for. That's all I have to share. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Bobby Jo Henry. I live at 47 River Street. I have had an opportunity to review what John Jackson planner submitted. And one of the things that I've highlighted here is actually a document from the town of Parry Sound that's it's called Parry Sound Official Plan. It's 2012. And as I read through in section 3.1.3.6, it says special provisions for 76 River Street. In addition, the provisions of this section, non-residential uses may be permitted provided there's no negative impact between the non-residential use and the abutting residential uses. So my husband and I have submitted a letter to the town with all of our concerns, and we've highlighted quite a number of potential problems with this proposal. Both of my neighbors have commented on the drainage. We struggle as well in the back of our yard. It's just a mush pit in the spring. There's nowhere for that water to go. And anytime you put a structure or you put any sort of item that needs to be stored, it's gonna redirect the flow of water. And where's that gonna go? There's significant potential for that to end up in our basements. Every single one of us has had to put tens of thousands of dollars into our houses because they're all old homes on that street. We've made the adjustments that are required for the current lay of the land. That gets altered in any way, and there's big potential for us to have problems. And who's fixing that, right? Like, because basically in the letters that we've all submitted, everybody has raised drainage as a significant concern. So it needs to be taken very seriously because that's going to potentially cost us a lot of money. But there are a number of factors here. Wildlife is a significant one because there's a lot of wildlife back there, and where are they gonna go? They're gonna be displaced. But I encourage you to read my letter. There's quite a number of, concerns. It really feels very much like a paved paradise and put up a parking lot back there again. Like it's just another scenario of that. Like there's no real significant benefit to this for the town. No houses are going up. No one's gonna be there's no extra housing in place. Like, it just feels like there's not enough benefit here. And there's too much potential for us to be negatively impacted as property owners on River Street. If I was to put up a for sale sign on my house today, I would ask a certain amount, but if this gets approved and that land gets rezoned to commercial property, people are gonna be reluctant to buy that because they don't know what to expect. The word transportation depot, very scary, because what does that look like? What are the specifics of that? The infrastructure would have to be completely revamped back there to put any kind of big truck. There's literally 2 tire tracks. I mean, it really needs to be assessed in depth because there's a lot of potential for this to be problematic. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning?
Yes.
Thank you. Good.
Hello.
Yep.
Thank you for hearing me. My name is Keith Wilson. I'm from 69 River Street.
Yep.
I'm not as well prepared as 47, 57, and 63, but I'm in very much agreement with everything that we had to say. I would like to add that our concerns, myself and my wife Candace, the concerns that we have are the enjoyment of our property, potential for the increased traffic behind our house and in front. I mean, more behind because of the proposed use of the land if this zoning change goes through. And other issues too, such as noise levels, light pollution, from security lights or whatever else that is installed for the purpose of these proposed buildings. The environmental impact, contamination that drains past our homes. And just to sum it up, I think most importantly that so far my thought is that this is going to have a negative impact on my property and everyone in this stretch of land. A negative impact on property value and the enjoyment of our property as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning?
My name is Joel Harrower. I'm at 15 Redwood Drive. Don't border directly onto the property, but border on the railway across from the property in question. I certainly don't have the grading issues that my friends that have been up before me have, but I'll definitely have some concerns about light pollution. Having just purchased the property where I am a year ago, it would definitely affect the value of the property just from what we look out to over. We certainly were aware of the railroad itself, but we're used to the green area and the wildlife that we enjoy because of that buffer of land that's down there as it is now. So we have concerns of that. Also, it was mentioned if it did go forward about some screening and acoustic prevention. We'd certainly like to know how that's going to be monitored and who's going to make sure that that takes place. Nevertheless, thanks for hearing my concerns and thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rand. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Gary Oldfield, and I'm a resident of Wakefield Street, number 13. And it's not so much whether I have a comment in opposition or otherwise, but I just have a question with regards to the property as it stands now. I know that I assume that the access for that property and for what they're planning in the future will be off of River Street, impacting the traffic on River Street. But my concern is there's a driveway on the south border of the property that empties out onto Dufferin Street. And my concern is if they open that up, I don't know if that's an unopened road allowance or whether it's just a legal driveway, I don't know, but it does access the property for entering or leaving. And I would just be very concerned if they opened that up to like a road. And then added more vehicles coming onto Wakefield Street as everybody roars around that little strip just to avoid the light at River Street and Bowes. And anyway, I just wanted to know if anybody will talk to that issue of the driveway at the southern boundary of the property.
Your concerns are being, your concerns are being logged, and everything will have to be addressed from everyone's concerns and questions tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Janice White, I live at 53 River Street. I don't have much to say other than I agree with what my neighbors have spoke about. But I'd like everyone here who would like to stop this amendment to raise their hand so we can have a hand count of how many people who are against it that are here. And that's what I have to say.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposal?
I'm Judy Ison, 51 River Street. My biggest concern is we had the opportunity of buying that piece of property 20, 25 years ago. I don't know on top of my head. But at the time we were told it was so polluted that we couldn't do anything with it. And so my biggest concern is they're gonna go back in there and start moving all this oil that the railroad left. And it would be a catastrophe, especially with all this water coming down and anyway. That's my biggest concern, and we did put a letter in of all the others, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition?
Sorry, but I just, apologies, I'm Joe Henry again. But just supporting what Judy just said, I actually have, an environmental study that was completed in 1996, and the correspondence with, CN Rail took place with Charlie Weir. And so I do have a copy of this that confirms contamination. Yes.
Can we get a copy of
Sure you
that?
can, yeah, I can, give Jeremy there is a summary in here, and, so I can give him
Okay,
the executive summary. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? It's the way it's structured. So I've got opposition and I had the other.
I mean, just add to what she had mentioned about the environmental, that there was a study done and then it was
You
clean.
need to come to the microphone. You need to come and.
Sorry, I would just add to any concerns about the environmental, is that in buying it from the railway, they embarked on an environmental cleanup. And there's a report for that as well, that we can turn over to the town.
Okay, anything like that we need, yeah. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning? No? Okay, Mr. Rand. Have there been any letters received as a result of the notice?
To your worship, there have been 7 objection letters which were received from neighboring property owners. These concerns include the following, and many of them were noted tonight already. Privacy, noise, light trespass, exacerbation of existing drainage issues, loss of wildlife habitat, loss of natural vegetation screening, existing contamination on site, traffic concerns, speeding, compatibility of uses, increased recreational vehicle traffic, reduction of property value, odors, negative impact to wildlife corridors, and lack of information being provided. I would note that staff will be addressing these in the report when the matter does come back to council. Comments received by CN Rail indicate that the following protective measures for non-residential uses adjacent to main lines, that a minimum 15-meter setback from railway right-of-way is recommended for heavy industrial warehouse, manufacturing and repair use. The chain link fence, a minimum of 1.83 meters in height, is required to be installed and maintained along the mutual property line. The stormwater management facility must be designed to control stormwater runoff to pre-development conditions, including the duration and volume of the flow, and accordingly have no impacts on the CN right-of-way, including ditches, culverts, and tracks. Any proposed alterations to the existing drainage pattern affecting railway property must receive prior concurrence from the railway and be substantiated by a drainage report to the satisfaction of the railway. Comments received by the building department indicate that legal access may be a concern and that there appears to be an open storm drainage course on the northern portion of the property to be developed. Comments received by the wastewater department indicate no concerns, and no other comments were received, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank everyone for their participation in this portion of this particular meeting. We do have another public meeting now involving another issue. So I don't know whether anybody's here for that, but we will proceed. So, Ms. Johnson, can you explain how the public is notified of consent application B2401 for 185-3009 Material Appropriate?
Your Worship, again, notice was given by a prepaid first class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 60 meters and posted on the property. Notice is therefore considered to be provided in accordance with financial.
Mr. Rand, can you explain the purpose of the proposed consent application? Consent or this one is a consent? Okay, all right.
Thank you, Worship. The subject lands are located at 7 Champagne Street, and the application was submitted in order to facilitate the creation of one 1.48 hectare severed lot containing 50.4 meters of frontage on Champagne Street and approximately 180 meters of water. The resultant retained lot would contain 2.95 hectares of area and would contain no road frontage and approximately 200 meters of water frontage. And the lands are currently vacant. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent. The person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry sound in respect of a proposed consent, does not make written submissions to the Council before, provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. At this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed application for consent? Oh, okay. Do we have Mr. Jackson or do we have Lauren? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor McGarvey and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you. My name's Lauren Arsenault and I'm a planner with Morgan Planning and Development, and our principal planner, Josh Morgan, is online as well. Thanks to staff for their summary. I'll just set up our slideshow. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Great.
Hold on. Are you going to be speaking?
John, we have to take over.
She is speaking. Just know.
Oh, can you text her or find? Thanks.
That's happy maybe.
Lauren, are you going to give the presentation?
Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay,
Here.
thank you. Sorry about that. I thought I was told to wait a minute. So Morgan Planning and Development have prepared a planning justification report in support of a consent application for 7 Champagne Street to create 1 residential lot on lands designated marine and resort residential. The subject lands are known municipally as 7 Champagne Street and located at the end of Champagne Street, west of Emily Street, and having approximately 370 meters of frontage on the Parry Sound Harbor of Georgian Bay. The subject property has approximately 4.5 hectares or 11.3 acres of total lot area. The subject lands are vacant, having previously been used for fuel storage. They were previously the Imperial Oil docklands, and they have since undergone remediation works. A concrete retaining wall remains on the property, which you can see here. It is in the intent of our client to develop the vacant lands with high-density multi-story condominium buildings and townhouse blocks. The subject lands have been zoned to permit the proposed use. I will note that lands to the south of the subject property are also owned by our client and will be developed similarly under a phased approach. The subject lands are designated marine and resort residential within the town's official plan and marine residential within the township zoning bylaw. A holding provision is applied along the shoreline and pertains to flood-prone areas where development is restricted. Removal of the holding provision will be required prior to any future development or site alteration along the shoreline. The objective of the consent application is to sever approximately 1.4 hectares or 3.6 acres of land with approximately 50 meters of frontage on Champagne Street from the subject property. The severance will allow the severed lot and the retained lot to be developed separately. The severed and retained parcels have been designed to comply with the minimum lot area provisions of the RM zone. However, the retained parcel does not currently have frontage on a municipally maintained road. It is intended that an extension of the municipal right-of-way will service development on the retained lot together with the abutting property to the south, which is also owned by our client. And we anticipate that the retained lot will be subject to a holding provision, which will prohibit its development until the municipal right-of-way has been extended. And so here's a look at the severed sketch. The proposed severed lands are in blue, and the proposed retained lands are in yellow. The retained parcel will comply with the minimum lot frontage provisions once the municipal right-of-way is extended to connect Kate Street with an unopened road allowance. So you can see down here, Kate Street would essentially come down, connect with Oliver, and run across the rear of the subject property. And the extension of the municipal right-of-way will provide access and road frontage to the retained lot. Here's a look at the zoning matrix, which shows how the severed and retained lands meet the zone standards. And once that right-of-way is extended, the retained parcel will be over 30 meters of frontage, which is required frontage within the RM zone. Of course, the water frontage far exceeds these requirements. In conclusion, Morgan Planning and Development feel the application conforms and complies with all levels of applicable planning legislation and represents good land use planning. The application will allow for the orderly development of vacant and underutilized brownfield site, which ultimately will lead to the revitalization of the waterfront area and provide a significant number of residential units to the local market. So thank you for your attention and consideration, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Now, at this time, is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed consent? Again, if you do, come forward, state your name and address. Yes.
Your Worship, it's John here again. I'm not speaking either in support of or in opposition. I just wanted to quickly underline a memo that I forward on behalf of the owners immediately to the east of this proposed development. Contrast Development has a project that is proposed for a 20-unit townhouse development that's been subject to site plan approval for this 20-unit townhouse development. Actually, as a bit of the background to this, as part of the consideration of the Contrast development, the Imperial Oil lands were considered as a part of this project. It's interesting, in fact, we had approached Imperial Oil about actually what the status of these surplus lands were, and many of the old time understandings were that the lands were permanent brownfield and not likely to be available for development because of the residuals on the property. And obviously that's changed, and that's a good thing, because I was involved 45 years ago with the redevelopment of the old brownfields, hoping that this kind of development would proceed. One of the things that we were needing to be conscious of as part of Contrast were the potential conflicts, and that's why this consideration was made. And when the lands became surplus and ultimately acquired by the current owners, we had to consider what that potential conflict or impact would be for what we consider to be harborfront view townhouses. So we are now in a position where we pivoted so that we would locate the townhouses on the property so that they would be above any elevation that might conflict with the development of these lands. So we're going to be carefully concerned about any of those impacts. And that's been a considerable resource and expense by Contrast to bring these lands up to an elevation that would be above any 15-meter height allowance of the development on the Imperial Oil lands, which is a good thing, so that we do not sell a false product to the prospective purchasers, of which there are many committed for this Contrast development townhouse project. So I just want to bring that forward to council so that they're aware of the sort of the response that we've had to undertake. And just two additional items I think that will come into play in council's consideration of this is that these are part of the Imperial Oil brownfields, and so we know that a record of site condition is something that has to occur before they can be developed. So it would be a pretty logical condition to place the approval with this provision that the lands obtain the necessary Environmental Protection Act approvals for a record of site condition. And lastly, I think that it's an area where there's sufficient land, the town may want to consider parkland versus any cash payment to extend trail systems and improve upon amenities at this location, which is an integral part of our waterfront. So in summary, it's not an objection, but just a high level of consciousness that we obviously have had to have to go through this process, and wish them well, and look forward to them implementing a long-term and long-time objective of the town's waterfront redevelopment. So thank you, council, very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in favor?
Thank you, Mayor McGarvey. If I may just respond to Mr. Docks's comment.
So we don't respond if we don't get into a back and forth in this. We take all the information in. And if you have something that you want to relate to staff, then if you could submit that later to Mr. Rand, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can press the button on there. Just state your name and.
Thank you. It's John Morton, I'm Greystone. I don't have a lot to say about this that hasn't already been covered, so I won't take a lot of time, other than we're excited to be working on this new area of town. We've already done quite a bit of work on it to get to this point. There's a lot more to go, and anyways, we this is sort of the first step in a long list of steps. Everybody knows probably in this room that there's been decades and decades of plans looking at this area in town. And so we're excited to be able to work with the town on a long-term sort of redevelopment plan for it, as it's sat vacant for a very long time. So yeah, happy to assist with you, as always with staff. We've had a number of successful developments in town and hope to continue.
Good, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed consent? No, okay. Then is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition of proposed application for consent? And again, you come forward, state your name and your address. Okay, one more time. Anyone wish to speak in opposition? No one online? Just double checking. All right, Mr. Rand, have there been any letters received as a result of the notice?
A letter of objection was received from Trevor Gilchrist at 39 Emily Street. In the letter, it was noted that there would be displacement of wildlife along construction horizon, hardship to the biosphere, disruption of an otherwise peaceful neighborhood, use of explosives, as well as the loss of view, were some of the areas of concern noted. A second letter was received from John Jackson on behalf of David Yankovic. I won't reiterate what John just mentioned, and I would note, however, the copy of this letter was shared with council. Additional comments were received by the building department that's indicated that both the severed and retained portions are adjacent to municipal road allowances, and no concerns were noted. Comments received by the fire prevention officer indicated no comments. Comments received by the Division of Wastewater Systems indicated no concerns. Comments received by the Water Systems Manager indicated that there's currently no municipal water servicing the properties, and no other concerns have been received by internal or external agencies circulated on the application. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. We have a mover and seconder to adjourn this meeting, Councilor McCann, Councilor Borneman. Do we now declare the public meeting closed? All in favor? That's carried. Give it back to your business. Questions of staff? Councilor Borneman?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is for Mr. Cairns.
He's right there.
Yeah, no, I realized that. I was looking, I was gonna say, I didn't see Mr. there on the screen, but, so Mr. Cairns, last weekend, I think, we held a pretty successful snow fest despite not much weather. The one, Kinsman Park is sort of the focal point of those, activities. And the one issue that, I was, made aware of was the lack of outdoor ice at the rink. I realize, as I said, we haven't had a normal Parry Sound winter. And we have staffing issues and more usage at the BOCC. Public Works people are on guard, waiting to plow sidewalks and streets. But this issue sort of comes to us almost every winter, where we're asking, where we have problems delivering on that, that outdoor living. So my question tonight, I don't expect an answer, is, but I would like you and Ms. McNamara, whoever else is involved, to come back to us with some options as to how we can avoid being in this same position a year from now. I'm not exactly sure what that might look like, but to me, we made the investment several years ago, and with the investment comes a certain level of commitment in my mind, and I think we need to decide how to best provide that service.
Through your worship. Thank you, Councilor Borneman. We've actually already been having those discussions, so we are working on some options, and we will be bringing a report back to council for consideration. Unfortunately, I don't know that we know what a normal Parry Sound winter looks like anymore, and I think the majority of the surrounding areas have been struggling this year in particular with natural ice. Outdoor artificial ice is terribly expensive and power hungry, not exactly environmentally friendly from a greenhouse gas emission type perspective. So we are looking at some options, and we will be coming back to council with some options. Thank you.
Councilor Keith?
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Cairns, and I have to say this past weekend, certainly there was an opportunity this best for many people to be out and about and involved in activities, and I think the recreational department did a fine job given the situation. However, I am concerned that on Family Day yesterday, I was at the DOCC myself and was able to witness some of the concern is that a few weeks ago, we opened up the elevator to be available so that any accessibility issues, we could easily accommodate that. And it certainly was the right thing to do. However, at the same time, there is a concern, and I'm wondering how we can work around it. That concern is that I observed myself, whereas I also received a couple of complaints regarding young children playing on the elevator. And we know this isn't Wonderland. That elevator certainly is important for the operation of the facility, and it costs money to run an elevator, and there's maintenance, and we want an elevator in good shape, and we want people with accessibility issues to be able to use it. So therefore, I'm wondering if it's possible in the future that there could be an examination, for example, of some signage right at the elevator, that basically something polite, but it's not a play toy, it's to be used for a very solid, legitimate use, so that can happen. And I also think that we have really hardworking staff at the BOCC, but they certainly are not parents, and they can't be watching children who aren't being supervised by their parents to not use the elevator in such a way. I do know that we have signage when we first come in the door at the VOCC, and I realize sign clutter can be exasperating, but I do think the elevator is in a different location, and we need to look at signage and what else can be done so this doesn't happen again, because we have a lovely facility there, but we also need to use the elevator. All people should be able to use it for the use it was intended. Can you assist, please?
Your worship, certainly it's something I think need to take a look at, and I think, perhaps in an event such as this weekend, it was a little bit different. There's not a user group particularly, it was open to the public. So there was probably a lot wider, use of the facility than would normally be seen perhaps on a hockey evening, for instance. But that being said, I think it's always a struggle in municipal arenas, and we've seen it everywhere, to encourage folks not to leave their kids unattended and to keep track of where their children are and what they're doing in these facilities, because they are large. There are hazards in the building, and I think we'll continue to encourage folks to keep an eye on our kids when we're in these facilities, but we can certainly take a look at what we can do to make the message clear that those facilities are meant for the folks that really need them, and we want to make sure that those elevators are there for the folks that really truly need them, rather than just as entertainment.
So thank you. So just for clarification, the concept of maybe some sort of signage around the elevator, that is at least an option that will be considered.
Certainly, we can take a look at, we want it to be effective as Councilor Keith, we don't want to overload the public with signage, but we want it to be effective. Whether it's just a visual that perhaps the kids can understand, or it's something, more comprehensive, but we'll look at what we can do.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
There is just one item of correspondence. It's from the Rotary Club, Parry Sound, that's specifically from Rick Kane, the current president. The Rotary Club often makes a deputation to council regarding their Rotary Strikes Against Cancer annual 3 pitch. They've indicated this year they're not in a position to do that with their many other events they're working on. So we're sending this letter instead. And I'll just read a bit from the letter. We are in the planning stages for the 3 pitch, but do not anticipate much of the same elements that have made the event successful over the years. But do anticipate the same elements that have made the event successful over the years. A big part is due to the generosity of the community and municipalities, donations and sponsorships that makes this event one of our major fundraisers each year. The town of Parry Sound has been very supportive in the past, and our communication today is to ask mayor and council to consider sponsorship again of the 2024 event. We've been fortunate to have great support from April McNamara and her team on the entire weekend, and look forward to working with the Recreation Department again this year. And we'll indicate to let them know if there's any questions or if we provide more information on that. I'm looking for the town's support.
Yeah, thank you. So that would go with the budget, right? Okay. Yeah. Good. There's no deputations. So with reports, we'll start with our 2 councillors online. Councillor Valesky.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be short tonight. I have no reports tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Here. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Your Worship. On February the 8th, I attended a business over breakfast event, Mad Maple, where I heard some concerns over the new children's aid moving in next to the Addictions Treatment Center. On February 14th, I attended a special meeting with the DBA board members and Parry Sound Cruisers Car Club. The club is looking for a new location for the Tuesday night car show, as the town dock is not available anymore. On February 15th, I attended Industrial Park Board special closed meeting. And over this past weekend, I attended some of the Snowfest activities. Big thanks to all the volunteers and town staff for putting together such a great and activity-packed long weekend. The fireworks display was great and capped off the family day weekend perfectly. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Born, I guess.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. February 13th, I attended a meeting of the Airport Commission. Business as usual for this time of year. That same evening, I attended the special council meeting with respect to the capital budget. February 14th, the governance committee at Belvedere Heights met continuing to review and revise the bylaws of home as required. Councillor McDonald reported on the industrial park board meeting on the 15th. I think the only thing that will eventually make its way to council's table from that meeting was a request from the archipelago for support to have a flashing light reinstalled across the highway at Woods Road. There was one there a number of years ago. It was removed. Traffic volumes on both Woods Road and the highway have only increased since that point, so they're looking for support to from all the municipalities in that regard. And I'll close, Mr. Mayor. I want to express my condolences to the family of Bill Land. Bill was a longtime firefighter in the community, and I'm sure his family would appreciate our support in those times of their loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and public. As well, Tuesday evening this time last week, I attended the capital budget meeting. I found the meeting interesting and a great opportunity to not so much talk about the numbers, as important as that is, but just to find out what the needs are and the costs and the logistics involved with all of the various departments in town, public works, office, et cetera, recreation. So in another month's time, we'll be working on the operating costs. So that was that. The public's invited and encouraged to visit the West Parry Sound District Museum and enjoy the history of curling in West Parry Sound District. The exhibit, Curling in Parry Sound, celebrating 125 years, is open in coordination with the Parry Sound Snow Fest. The exhibit was informally opened this past Saturday. Museum members and curling club members had an opportunity to get the first look and feel of the curling exhibit. Steve Holmes threw the first rock. This Thursday, the 22nd, the museum will be hosting an opening for the Reconnecting to the Forgotten exhibition. And the special guests will include yourself, Mr. Mayor, also Mayor McDermott, Mayor Murphy, and Mayor Robinson, and James King representing FPB Green Smith, expected to be on hand. And that is at the museum, and that is coming up this Thursday. And the doors will be open at 5:30. And this is for your information note. People in the West Parry Sound area will be interested to know that the McMichael has created an exhibition of indigenous photographs that will be displayed at the McMichael on November now until November 24th. For tour in Ontario. Photographs were taken by none other than John McPhee, who, while working in the north for the Ministry of Natural Resources, the McMichael collection has agreed to loan the West Parry Sound District Museum a quarter of the exhibit for a period of 4 months. This exhibition is so huge that the museum can only handle that much. And at this time, the board will be deliberating on a budget and some fundraising, so we're still looking at the costs of that. And I mentioned we'll be discussing now this Thursday evening at our meeting following the special opening. So I found that rather interesting. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ashford.
Just to keep things quick for my report, I think I'm going to choose the theme of progress. Industrial park meeting in the last couple of weeks and a full committee meeting there. And things are moving. Things are moving on the pool. Things are moving at the industrial park. We've got great things going on here. Thank you.
Councilor Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and the public. My report will be short. I attended no meetings as there was none. However, I did attend various Snowfest activities, and on Monday Family Day, I did volunteer to help out at the Heart Room, where it wasn't a hard job because it was playing games and watching a number of children face painted. I didn't get to see any adults face painted, but the lady definitely was very artistic in that line. And I too want to express my condolences to Bill and Valerie. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, staff, and public, February 8th at 6:30, attended the Parry Sound District Social Services Board meeting. February 12th, I had a municipal employee pension plan meeting. February 13th was our budget meeting, which people have mentioned. February 14th, we had the West Parry Sound Recreation and Culture Center meeting, which Councillor Ashford has mentioned. February 15th, I attended a Chamber of Commerce event that was held at Tailwinds Restaurant. So I'd like to thank the Chamber for putting on the event, which just to have our MPP on hand, Minister Smith, but he ended up under the weather. So James King, his staff person here, brought greetings from the minister and answered and took some questions. February 19th, Family Day. I'd like to thank Tim Hortons and No Frills for their contributions to the Family Day event at the Bobby Art Community Center. I'd also like to thank Councillor Borneman for lending his expertise on the grill and flipping hot hamburgers and trying to catch hot dogs. And Councillor Keith for volunteering upstairs as well. My son and daughter, Michael and Natasha, daughter-in-law were on hand. Big thank you to April McNamara and Jamie Youngs and the rest of our staff at the BOCC for their support. And I want to thank all of our staff, volunteers, and sponsors over the course of Snowfest weekend, Family Day, for all of their support going into the event. It's not a small job to tackle. There's a lot of moving parts, and it takes, a lot of volunteers and sponsors to make this all work out and come to fruition. So thank you to everyone. February 19th, that evening, I attended a special meeting in the West Parry Sound Recreation and Culture Center. It was a closed meeting, so I can't really comment on that, but this time I'd also like to offer my condolences to the family of Bill Land as well. That's my report. Yes. Right. So one item coming from the closed agenda. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Barnman, the bylaw number 2024-7397 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an amendment to the West Parry Sound Recreation and Culture Center Joint Municipal Services Board Agreement to be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman and seconded by Councillor McCann. That the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Is there any discussion? All in favor then? And that's carried. Thank you. Now we go to the item that was moved forward, moved by Councillor Ashford, seconded by Councillor Keith. The bylaw number 2024-7396 being a bylaw to set tax ratios for municipal purposes for the year 2024, which is read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Good. Moved by Councillor Ashford, seconded by Councillor Keith. The bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor Warren.
I'd like Mr. Beaumont to remind me and the public as to what we're up to here.
Just bring the recordings from last year.
Yeah. We could get a cutout of you and then play the recording. Right.
You know, so you know, it only make appearances in front of themselves. Through you, your worship, Councilor Mormon, basically with the tax ratios, do they help us implement our tax rates? Like I said in my report, ratios are set and they've been set this way since 2008. Theory being if we have to reduce the ratios of the non-residential properties, they have to go towards the lower end of the one, which is a residential property, which basically would shift the tax burden on the residential people. So keeping the ratios the way they are now would, benefit the residents with not increasing the tax burden on them. As I said in the report too, our ratios are mostly below average for the BMA study that was done. So we're in good shape that way. We are above the ranges set by the province, but they were put in place after we already set the ratios years ago. So, just to let you know, our multi-residential ratio is way below average. Our commercial ratio is average with the BMA study, and the industrial ratio is way below the average from the study. So I think we're in good shape with the ratios where they are.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Bowman? No. Thank you, sir. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Ashford. The council accepts the bid from Provincial Road Markings Incorporated for lines and pavement systems of town streets in the amount of $38,262.53, excluding taxes. This being the lowest compliant bid of 5 bids received. Any discussion? Yeah. Councillor Ashford.
I just had a question about what's kind of being painted and how it's painted. We get a lot of talk about Wabick there and woods and sidewalk and all the different things when they're repainting the road. Worries about how the sidewalk crossings can sometimes make it look like the sidewalks part of the road with the asphalt sidewalks and all these kind of different things. How does that factor into the painting contracts? Do we kind of talk to them about that? Is there any way to make sure that we're like getting the road painted to make sure it differentiates between the asphalt sidewalks and the asphalt roads? And how does that kind of all play out? I can imagine if I'm coming in as a contractor, probably not from Parry Sound, I'm gonna paint it what I think, which is the same as how someone would drive it, and do we need to change that a little bit when we do this, or how does it all play out?
Mr. Kearns?
Thank you.
So just for clarification, this is the center lines and pavement markings. So turning lanes and that sort of thing. So our own staff do the crosswalks in delineation there. So we have the opportunity, we dictate what line markings are part of this contract. So we have the ability to, if we see fit to modify, we certainly have that ability in-house as well. So that's outside of this contract.
Thank
you. Thanks. Councilor Barnum?
Mr. Cairns, many newer vehicles have lane assists and all of these tactical things. Is the paint that we're using causing people's cars to shake and squeal or whatever they do, make noises to remind people to stay within the proper lane?
Through your worship. My understanding of most of those systems is that they operate at a higher rate of speed, so I really hope that they're not being called upon. I think, at least from my own experience, they don't operate at lower rates of speed typically. But we are certainly using compliant paint that's similar to what the province uses as well.
Thank you.
Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. By Councillor Ashford, and second by Councillor Keith. The council adopts the revised facade improvement program committee terms of reference attached to Schedule A, and that resolution 2017-124 be revoked. Mr. Rand.
Thank you, Worship. A few things are happening here. We had a vacancy on the facade improvement program committee, and through the application process for new members, we received 3 applicants. And we also discovered that our terms of reference is fairly dated. So we're doing a number of things here, waiting updating of that terms of reference. And we also noted that currently we only have a committee of 3. We thought that increasing the membership to 5 or up to 5 with a minimum of 3 would give us some flexibility in terms of administrating the committee should there be an unexpected vacancy. Certainly here for any other questions.
Any questions? All in favor then? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Keith, that resolution 2022-157 is hereby amended to appoint the following to the facade improvement program. We have Kim McCormick, Caitlin Ruler, and Ryan McEwen. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. I'd like to thank those individuals for putting their names forward. Appreciate it. Moved by Councillor Keith, and second by Councillor Ashford, that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound hereby supports the municipality tweet resolution attached to Schedule A to advocate for a return of 1/3 funding agreements between the federal, provincial, and municipal governments to finance infrastructure, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, MP Scott Aitchison, MPP Grady Smith, and the municipality of Tweed. Any discussion? The only thing I will add, we don't get a whole lot right now, other than what they call gas tax or building fund. So, but we do have projects that need to be done, and there are a lot of other municipalities across Ontario that need projects done, and we need something from province and federal government. So, all in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor McDonald, for having that brought forward. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor Borman. Council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound hereby supports the Town of Elmer's resolution attached to Schedule A to advocate for provincial consideration for amendments to the Residential Tenancies Act 2006 to ensure that all tenants benefit from protections intended to preserve affordability. And the copy of this resolution be sent to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable Rob Black, Associate Minister of Housing, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Town of Elmer. Should our MP be on here too? See where?
Sure.
Yeah. Friendly amendment, we have Mr. Smith. Okay. Any discussion? Councilor McCann.
I would ask Councilor McDonald if he could, talk about this, exactly what's happening here.
Thank you, for your worship, and I'll be quick here. I'm battling a bit of a flu bug, but there was a Residential Tenancies Act put forward in 2006 that provided the maximum a landlord can increase their rent for most tenants during a year without the approval of landlord and tenant board. However, the rental increase guideline protection does not apply to rental units occupied for the first time after November 15th, 2018, leaving an increasing number of tenants susceptible to disproportionate and unsustainable rental increases compared to those benefiting from the legislated control.
Thank you. Okay. Anything further? Councillor Ashford?
I am a little bit nervous about this one, because in one sense, we know, we want to, I think it's obvious you want to have protection for people when they're living in a home. And that rent wouldn't raise too quickly and they wouldn't be able to stay in that home. So I kind of see that as an important part. I do see that protection as happening in a time when rent rates were competitive and landlords had to kind of compete a bit to make sure they get good tenants. Where we're in a position now where the tenants are competing, and I worry that if this were to change, landlords, in order to ensure they get a good investment, return on their investment, would increase rents to a higher level because they know they can't increase them later. So we'd actually be like reducing the amount of housing, or the opposite, or the other thing, perhaps they would not be able to do the investment in the buildings that we're trying to get because they're worried about not being able to get a return on their investment. So I am a little hesitant on this one, just because the changes in the market for rentals in the last while, that perhaps it's 5-10 years down the road would be the opportune time to put protections back in place once the housing has caught up with the population. But then again, I'm kind of playing a guessing game. Maybe the housing's never going to catch up with the population. So I can't really speak to this positively or negatively, in the sense that there's just so many unknowns in that area.
Councillor McCann?
Councillor Ashford makes a good point there, and I'm wondering why we went back to 2018 rather than maybe at some point when COVID hit, because that's when supply and demand played against each other, and that's when the cost of a 2x4 and a sheet of plywood just made it impossible for people to build new homes. I get it that if you know, anyone will tell you that's built a home in the last 2 or 3 years, that it's just outrageous compared to what it was some time ago. But I want, and you know, and again, as Councillor Ashford mentioned, you want good tenants, but you also want to charge a decent price and get your return on your investment. But I'm wondering if maybe, rather than 2018, that perhaps maybe a better year would be during or after, just after COVID had hit, because that's really, I think, when the barometer sort of really exploded. I put it up, threw it up the flagpole for someone to comment on.
Councillor Gordon, you look like you're gonna put your hand up.
Maybe I misunderstood some of this, but the way I read it was the developer builds his units, he sets the rent, he fills the building. Those before 2018 have some safeguards in place as to how much the rent can increase. So they're probably already at the low end of the scale. Those after 2018 have no such protections. So even though the rent is high, it can be raised by any extent at the mercy of the landlord, the developer. So to me, you know, the cost of rent, the rate of return that a developer is going to seek is going to be built into the rent or the lease rate to start with. He's not going to charge $500 a month if his loan is costing him $5,000 a month for those units. So to me, this makes good sense in the, you know, like, once we've established whatever the fair rate is for the units, let's keep it within the ballpark. Let's not start gouging after the fact because we can.
Any further comments? Questions on this one? All in favor then? Any opposed? One opposed. That's carried. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor Borneman. Council Corporation Town of Perry Sound hereby supports the Chandler Park Developers Resolution and passed in Schedule A, opposing the PC Energy Pump Storage Project on Georgian Bay, and urges Department of National Defense (DND) to immediately implement measures to remediate the military base to ensure that the area is fit for human and animal habitation. The Ministry of Environment ceased their support of the project, except the Independent Electrical Systems Operators IESO recommendations that the project should not be approved, and therefore avoiding placing in unnecessary financial burden on Ontario taxpayers. And that this resolution be forwarded to the Township of the Archipelago and to the IESO, END, the Honorable Andre Conjures, Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Honorable Grady Smith, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, Scott Aitchison, MP for Perry Sound Muskoka, Diane LaBooth, okay, Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard to request their cooperation in preventing this project from proceeding. Discussion? Councilor Gillespie.
Yes, your worship, thank you. What they're against, I can't figure where that area is. Is it an old military base and the way they're talking?
Apparently, yes. Near Meaford. Councilor McDonald.
Thank you, worship. Yes, it's it's in Meaford, just off of, the shoreline. They're proposing to pump out, volumes of water into a reservoir, during low peak times and then generate power by releasing it back into Georgian Bay, during high peak times. And there's a lot of concern that it's going to disrupt wildlife and habitat when it's released back in into the bay.
Thank you, your worship. Yes, I know where that place is, but it didn't identify it in the background of it. I actually watched a demonstration from that company, and I understand how it works, and I think that I was going to bring something to this council where we may be interested in that sort of thing ourselves, using, not pumping water up, but using water out of our sewage treatment plant that now runs down into the bay anyway. So it would be a one-way deal, but that's something I'll bring up later. I just didn't know where the military base was they were speaking of. Thank you, worship.
Councilor Ashford.
At first glance on this one, I normally would speak in favor of projects like this. I think this project is the kind of thing that Ontario needs going forward, to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. I do sometimes, in my home area in Essex County, there's so many windmills that they can't help but kill birds. And you know, there's a lot of discussion around that, and what's the damage to the environment of the windmills? What's the damage to the environment of fossil fuels, and how do you balance those kind of things? So this project, especially, you know, getting rid of a brownfield and having an energy storage,
seemed at first like something that would check all my boxes. So I wanted to thank Councillor McDonald. He's provided good information to me over the last few days on this as well. But what causes me hesitation with this project is the way that it's being done. And the Energy Authority in Ontario has noted that the way the contract has gone out, it is an extremely expensive contract that does not appear to be in the best interests of the taxpayer, in the sense that it should go out to tender and something should be done in that manner. So I do think that we should pass this resolution and send that information forward in this particular situation. Not because of the relation to the environmental impacts, but more for the sake of the cost and how the project's been going forward, in order to make sure that we have a manageable battery system in Ontario to contain our electrical needs, aside from just pumping more natural gas in when people turn the air conditioners on. I think we need to have projects like this happening, but in ways that are the best way for Ontarians as we go forward. The other benefit of passing it is it supports our brothers and sisters over at the Church of. Thank you.
Any further? All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councilor Borneman and seconded by Councilor McGann, whereas amyloidosis is a group of diseases that occurs when an abdominal protein known as an amyloid builds up in the tissues of the organs of the body and is left untreated, can result in organ failure and can be fatal. And whereas amyloidosis can mimic the signs of symptoms of more common medical conditions, and the disease can be challenging to diagnose. And whereas amyloidosis often affects people who are older or middle-aged, however, younger people have been diagnosed with this disease. Whereas some of the signs and symptoms of amyloidosis can include shortness of breath, weight loss, fatigue, swelling in the ankles and legs, numbness in the hands, feet, foamy urine, carpal tunnel syndrome, bruising around the eyes, and an enlarged tongue. Whereas early diagnosis can lead to better outcomes for both patients and their families, whereas raising awareness about all amyloidosis diseases, including hereditary and non-hereditary forms of the disease, can contribute to building of healthier communities across Canada. Now therefore, the Council for the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound hereby proclaims March 24th as Amyloidosis Awareness Month, a month dedicated to raising awareness, funding research, and supporting those living with amyloidosis and their loved ones. Some of the words on this agenda tonight have been picky. Still don't think I got that one name right, but anyway, that's. Any questions, comments?
You're doing good.
All in favor? It's carried. Moved by Councilor Borneman, second by Councilor McCann, that the Councilor for the Town of Parry Sound hereby authorizes the mayor to sign a letter to the federal ministers substantially in the form attached, expressing support for the modernization of Via Rail's long distance, remote, and regional LDRR rail fleet. Any discussion? Councilor Keith?
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say, over the past year, I've taken on the opportunity, shall I say, of taking an interest in watching and learning more about trains in various countries. And I am amazed that in a country like Canada, that we are so far behind in trains and in the speed. I just brought up again because the name is a little bit difficult for me, but for example, in China, and I saw a program on this, the Shanghai maglev train, and it says top speed, 431 kilometers, fastest train in China. And it has the increase from 2013 to 2021, 33,221. The number of trains that they have, the speed, and it's not just in China, Japan, Switzerland. You see how these trains are built and designed to work with the track, the importance of moving people, moving product. And I think, how can we be in a country like Canada and be so far behind? So I certainly support this resolution.
It's kind of timing the train goes by.
Wait 30 minutes.
Wait, yeah. Anything further on this one? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Ashford. That Councillor Keith is hereby appointed to the Parry Sound Police Services Board effective immediately for the term ending November 14th, 2026, or until a successor is appointed. Any discussion? Councillor Keith.
Yes, I was just going to mention, at present, I am the representative for the Community Policing Advisory Committee. And as the Police Service Board, we're looking at a date of April 1st throughout the province. These boards will be coming into effect. It is necessary for all municipalities to be appointing a representative. I would say though, if there's somebody else just jumping out at this opportunity, because there's a process afterwards and a training that has to be done within 6 months, feel free to put your hand up.
The good thing the door's closed when we can't run in. All in favor? That's carried, none opposed. Moved by Councillor Ashford and seconded by Councillor Keith. Whereas the vibrancy of downtowns continue to be a challenge and a priority for municipal councils across Ontario. Where the vibrancy and attraction of downtowns is driven by the variety and boutique nature of the shopping experience. Whereas some provincially funded services such as children's aid societies are not compatible with downtowns and Main Street businesses. Where there is a concern that Main Street service locations do not provide clients with the appropriate privacy and level of discretion that may in fact deter individuals from accessing needed services. Whereas the location of provincial services offices from a practical perspective is beyond the control of local municipalities. Whereas the location of provincial services offices is a local office decision not requiring ministry approval. Now therefore be it resolved, the provincial government be requested to develop a policy with criteria for determining the appropriate location for the provision of in-person services, and that the policy should include consultation with the local municipality, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Honorable Michael Farza, Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, the Honorable Braden Smith, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, and the Ontario Business Improvement Area Association, the OBIAA. Any discussion? Councilor McCann, good.
It's interesting, the timing on this, but Councilor McDonald mentioned that he had, people had expressed concerns to him with the CAF office being right next to the clinic there, and so, the timing on this is quite good. I certainly support this.
Councilor Money.
I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do locally within the scope of the official plan review as well. If it's not one more thing to to discuss through that process.
Chief Johnson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the chair and I are well aware of concerns of this nature. And we have spoken numerous times with consultants about what opportunities exist through the development of the official plan and down the road with the zoning bylaw, which will come after the official plan, on trying to deal with this particular issue. So from a local standpoint, this will be moving forward to the official plan discussion. Council will see it as a discussion paper when they'll start moving forward to you for consideration as we're developing the official plan. So what's in front of you, Meg, is what other avenues are available to also address this so that we have a multi-pronged approach.
Thank you.
Anything further? I keep forgetting about a gentleman online there, whatever as well, so. You fellas are good? Okay. Mr. Harris.
Just for the benefit of the public, we looked into the Children's Aid Society and how their decisions are made and how they're funded. We looked at the OTAC funding, the meth clinic on Main Street, and we didn't include it in this resolution because it's apparently a private company, not funded by the province. So this resolution is directed at what the province can do with the services they provide. But we're still obviously concerned about what businesses will pay on the Main Street, and Mr. Thompson, Mr. Rand are looking at that in terms of the official plan review and the follow-up zoning bylaw.
Anything further in this one? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Moved by Councilor Rafter, second by Councilor Keith, the file number 2024-7398, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings carried. Moved by Councilor Keith and second by Councilor Ashford, with the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? And that's carried. Prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, March the 5th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Stephen Street, entrance via Gibson Street. Be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule notices of special council meeting, complete agendas and minutes and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meeting on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following the regular council meeting. For postal listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.